Hi there, folks. It's David Ostriker here in Karmiel. Sunny, warm Karmiel. I'm standing in the shade. The sun is too hot today. And we're on the edge of Parsha RE'EH. And also, we're about to go into the month of Elul, the month that precedes the month of holidays, Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. It's a very special time. On the third day of Elul is the yahrzeit of RE'EH Kook. RE'EH Kook is one of the great inspirations for people who make Aliyah, for people who live in Israel. He was a great rabbi who died a little less than 90 years ago and left a tremendous stamp on the people because he was very learned and of course deeply observant, but also had a great understanding of those people who came to Israel to create the state of Israel, who were not steeped in mitzvot, who were not steeped in observance. So I'm going to tell a little anecdote about RE'EH Kook. RE'EH Kook went once to visit a community, a kibbutz, a farming kibbutz. And he noted how carefully the farmers were with every element of farming, the precision. He also noted that they didn't have that kind of precision in their observance of Torah. And he told them a story. He said there was once an old man who became ill. And the result of his illness was that he had become forgetful and forgotten the entire alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet. The doctors came to him and said, "There's nothing we can do. This won't return to you. You will have to start from scratch. You have to learn the alphabet from the beginning." And so the old wise man enrolled himself in kindergarten, and with the children began to learn alphabet again right from the beginning. And over time, something strange happened. He was learning, like the kids around him, but he began to act in a childish way. Right? He began fighting and quarreling with little children like he was a little child. And the teacher took him aside and said, "Look, granted that your studies are the same as the studies of 6-year-old children, 5-year-old children, but you must never forget that you are also a wise old man." And he told the kibbutzniks gathered around him, he said, "You know, for 2,000 years, we were like children in terms of knowing how to deal with the land. As farmers, we didn't know. And now we're learning from scratch, like children. But we mustn't forget that we are a wise old nation that has returned." It says once at Rosh Hashanah, I'll probably tell the story again. I can't help myself, I love it. People came rushing to the Rav's home, RE'EH Kook, and said, "You know, there's a construction site, and it's Rosh Hashanah, and the construction workers are still working. They're not in shul. They're working on Rosh Hashanah. RE'EH Kook, what should we do?" Without hesitating, RE'EH Kook said, "Take a shofar, go to the construction site, and blow the shofar for them, so that they should hear the shofar. The mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah is to hear the shofar. Don't worry about your own concerns. Worry about that they should hear the shofar." That was the lesson. We should all have that level of wisdom. I want to talk a little bit about RE'EH, and it continues a theme that I discussed last week. RE'EH, there's a word, again, Jonathan Sacks, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the former chief rabbi of Great Britain, points this out. In the Torah, There's a word that's repeated 7 times in Parsha RE'EH and hardly ever prior to the book of Devarim. What is that word? B'simcha. B'simcha. Roughly translated into English as joy. There's many other qualities about it. Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Jewish people, you are leaving the Midbar, the desert, where water and food and learning and clothing, everything was provided for you. And now you're going to enter the land that was promised. Promised to you, promised to Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. And you will take this land, and it will give you all that you need. But before you make your decisions, know that I'm putting before you a choice to choose life or death, blessings or curses. With blessings come the way of the Torah. And with that comes simcha. And this is tremendously important. And Rabbi Sachs points this out beautifully. He says, what's the difference between joy, as we call it, and simcha? And he says there's a very subtle difference. You know, you can sit at home listening to a beautiful rendition of a Beethoven symphony, and joy will well up within you. But not simcha. Not simcha. Right? You will order food and eat delicious food, and it will be so yummy, and you'll love it, and you'll feel joy from it, but not simcha, not simcha. What's missing? Simcha is a joy that comes from a communal recognition of the goodness and greatness that we are given. Simcha doesn't exist by itself. Simcha can exist in a family, in a community, in a nation. There's a noun, a simcha. A bar mitzvah is a simcha, a bat mitzvah is a simcha, a wedding is a simcha. It's an event of joy. You can have national joy, community joy, but simcha comes from a joy that is done with others. Rabbi Sachs points out that no time in history have we had more. Have our lifespans been longer? Have our quality of life been more substantial? And yet, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, misuse of legal drugs and illegal drugs, depression, stress, has increased 300% in the last 2 generations. How can you have all of these things that we have and still have these problems? He points out that the Lubavitcher Rebbe got a letter once from a fellow who said, I'm very depressed. I'm unhappy. I'm dissatisfied. I'm miserable. I'm paraphrasing. The Rebbe responded very simply by circling the first letter of every sentence. I. It's all about I. Right? Oh, we live in a world of, it's a famous product, right? iPhone, iPad, I this, I that. B'simcha, joy involves others, not just yourself. And so it is that the Torah tells us, as you enter the land that was promised to your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and you settle that land, and you become successful in that land. Remember, be b'simcha. When you come to my dwelling place, to the temple, be b'simcha. When you bring a sacrifice, be b'simcha. When you celebrate Sukkot, when you sit in your sukkah, be b'simcha. When you remember Shavuot and the harvest, be b'simcha. Not just happy yourself. Happy as a community, happy as a treasured people of Hashem. And so it is on this Shabbos, as we stand on the edge of Elul, a time for introspection. Don't allow that introspection just to be about what I did badly. Let it include what you were given for the good. Re'eh, to see. To know. B'simcha. That's our word for today. Shabbat Shalom. David Ostriker, here in Karmiel.